I'm quite excited about what I'm about to show you, not because it's absolutely pretty. We didn't spend too much time on the UX of it, but more time on the functionality and actually being able to show you something for the first time, because we're talking a lot about the vision, and some of the OpenFi vision is already live. But we have yet to see some of the things implemented. So in the opening keynote, I was touching a little bit on what is holding us back, and I mean, we're the identity operating system, so obviously we have a little bit of a bias here, but the main problem that we see for OpenFi to take off is that if you're building products that are modular, they need to still work like they are centralized in terms of from a user perspective. So you do not want to have a neobank type of experience where if you want to go and use a subsection of that product, you want to re-KYC, right? As an identity company, we could have gone into very different areas to decentralize identity. And it's certainly easier if you're thinking about like creating a narrative around AI and how you can make sure that people are real people. But we wanted to tackle the regulatory space because we deeply believe in that this needs to be decentralized. It needs to be improved upon for it to get better. Because let me also say that quite clearly, the way that KYC is being done is not great at all. We're just like blanket excluding people, but we do need to implement it in a way that the data is not stored centrally, and you can basically pick among several providers and you're not stuck with one. We need to basically abstract the KYC layer that you do at once, and it's in your self-custody, and that's what I want to show you. And it's the first time that a system like this is live, so I hope that the demo gods are with me today, and this works. And does this mic work as well? All right. So, in the spirit of OpenFi, we actually partnered up with Common to showcase it. And we will hear Quill, because they are also heavily involved as the next keynote, that are providing the base infrastructure for it. So in my opinion, it's one of the great examples of actually showing something specific where people all over the world just collaborated to make this possible. So what you see here is the common interface, and I'm going to shielder what you have just seen. So imagine you're in the US, and for US individuals, you know, to be able to shield your transactions, there needs to be an identity verification. I'm just making this up. This is not going to be how we'll actually implement it, but it's for the case of this demo. So what we'll do is connect the wallet, and we want to verify. So we're actually going to go through a live KYC process. I'm not going to fully dox myself. I mean, you already know my name, but there are possibilities to use sample data here. But I really wanted to show you how easy it could be, and so I do need to show you like the full process. I'm just dragging some documents in here, and this is actually live, so this data is actually going to be checked. So far, so familiar. But now the cool thing starts. So we've just been verified with sum and substance. This could be any provider, right? What I'm doing now is the cool thing. We're basically pirating the credentials from sum and substance, and we're creating a user-based passkey, which is the encryption key for my personal data. So this is another private public key pair. that we created using a passkey. And right now, it's the process of pulling it from the API, encrypting it, or transferring it into a W3C standardized credential, encrypting it with the passkey that I just generated, and putting it into the IDOS. What is the IDOS? The IDOS is a decentralized, or it's a node network that allows you to self-custodial store your information. So now I got routed back, and it's asking me to share that data. But first of all, I need to decrypt it because it is encrypted with my key pair, and you cannot show it it won't be displayed. I am actually in control of that. It's like open authentication, fully decentralized. So what I'm doing now is I'm giving a grant, and this is actually a live process on the Sepolia testnet. So you would be able to see that Common is receiving this access grant, where in later stages Common can go to one of the node providers that is verifying that Common has the right to access that data and and pull the data, because what the SDK is doing here is it's taking the decrypted data, encrypting it with public key of the recipient, and putting it into the IDOS. And this is happening as we're speaking. It's a little bit slow. This is what I was talking about when it comes to UX. There's a lot to improve. Like, you can just make the steps shorter, but the cool thing is it actually works. We are now going to the IDOS. This is pulled from the IDOS using now the recipient's right, like you would have with an open authentication. So now the magic comes in. This step, it was rather quick, pretty regular KYC process, but now the cool thing comes in, because Common is now enabled to do any regulatory onboarding with this system. So we can go and order a card. We've just seen it. You'll see in a second that this is not the actual flow. This is not with wholly held yet. But these providers, they can request this access grant. The user, again, is in control to give access to that data. And the recipient can then has the guarantee to go to the IDOS to fetch it. And I want to talk about a little bit, after diving into the technical aspects, also about the legal aspects. Sorry about that, but it's part of our product. Yeah? We do not just have coders that are engineers, we also have builders that are lawyers, to make sure that we can abstract this away. Again, what's happening here is we have an access grant that's being created, and the recipient SDK, in this case the card provider, makes sure that the credential that was being shared is actually fine for them. So we've built this tooling for the card provider to make sure, and the card is ordered. So imagine that being a step of 5 seconds, because you just need to sign a transaction, and you can onboard. You can onboard to a fully licensed bank, to a card, to a loan, and you can rely on this data from a compliance process as well. So there are some philosophical questions behind it, right? And that I want to address here. Like, do we want to allow KYC in our space? Is probably the biggest one. And my stance here is that we have the revolutionary approach, just go use Bitcoin. But it's like, what now, 14 years or so that it's actually live, but I cannot go and just use Bitcoin. And I have my personal hunches, it's not going to happen. So this is more of an evolutionary approach to make sure that we change the systems. But to change the systems, we actually need to engage and change them. And one of those things definitely is KYC. And we cannot just afford to relay back on like legacy providers because they store this data centrally. And I can tell you that it really hurts to keep data in centralized databases. We cannot afford to do it. Yeah? We're paying so much attention to decentralizing everything, but when it comes to data, oops, there's the dirty little backend that I have that no one is talking about. So from a compliance perspective, just real quick, what we did is we've been in the identity space forever, for like 7 years, trying to solve this. And we're using two systems. We're using the passporting system, which is an ability of obliged entities to pass on those credentials. So the card provider likely is an obliged entity because they're regulated. If that fails because the issuer is not an obliged entity, we have an ingestion process where you can treat that data as if the user has just entered it. It doesn't matter if they're sitting there actually filling out something or if they're just retrieving the file. You then need to check it still as a recipient, but you do not need to ask the user to go through this painful process again. So it's still better in our opinion, at least. We are implementing that with very close consortium members of ours. In the summer, we were able to announce that we're partnering up or partnered up with Circle, Ripple, Near, Gnosis, LF0, Radix, and some others to really have like a core application where we show it to really in February and March really have it all open so that we can interoperate and hopefully use it to abstract away KYC to be able to bring this to the masses. Because in my opinion, this is what stands between us and the mass market, is to actually have something that people out there can use in their everyday lives that just feels just like regular products or at best 5 times better.